My neighbor's 18-year-old son asked me out twice, even after I clearly said no. When I told his mother, she was mortified, but his father just shrugged it off. Boys will be boys. Now, he's trying to flip the script by posting daily TikToks claiming I stalk and flirt with him, painting me as some predator. But last night, someone knocked on their door with a badge and suddenly he's at my doorstep begging me not to press charges and destroy his entire future. I'm Lizzie, 28F, and I've been living in my little suburban neighborhood for about 3 years now. It's one of those cookie-cutter developments where everyone knows everyone, and your business becomes the block's entertainment. The Hendersons moved in next door about 18 months ago, nice enough family with 2 kids. Mom's name is Catherine, super sweet woman who works as a nurse and always waves when she's tending to her garden. Dad is Rick, some middle management guy who thinks he's way funnier than he actually is and has strong opinions about lawn care. Their oldest son Tommy just turned 18 in March. Kid's always been polite enough, helped me carry groceries a few times, shoveled my driveway last winter without being asked. His little sister Jenny is 14 and mostly keeps to herself. Typical suburban family stuff, you know? I work from home doing freelance graphic design, so I'm around the neighborhood a lot during the day. Catherine and I developed this casual friendship where we chat over the fence, share garden tips, that sort of thing. She'd often mention how proud they were of Tommy, straight A student, got into state university on a partial scholarship, planning to study engineering. Good kid with a bright future ahead of him. Or so I thought. The first incident happened in mid-April, about 6 weeks ago. I was outside watering my flower beds around 6 p.m. when Tommy came over. Nothing unusual about that, like I said, he'd helped me out before. But this time felt different. He was fidgeting, kept running his hands through his hair, and had this weird intense energy. "Hey Lizzie," he started, "I was wondering if maybe you'd want to go get dinner sometime? Like, just the 2 of us?" I was honestly caught off guard. Not because I hadn't noticed he was an attractive kid, objectively speaking, he is. Tall, athletic build, those blue eyes that probably make girls at school swoon. But the age gap felt massive to me. When I was his age, I was a college freshman making terrible decisions about boys and alcohol. He was literally 10 years old. The math alone made me feel weird. "Oh Tommy, that's really sweet of you to ask," I said, trying to keep my voice gentle but clear. "But I don't think that would be appropriate. You're 18 and I'm 28, that's a pretty big age difference. Plus, I think of you more like a little brother, you know?" His face flushed red, and for a second I thought he might get upset. But then he just nodded and said, "Yeah, totally get it. Just thought I'd ask. No big deal." I figured that was the end of it. Kid shot his shot, got rejected politely, and we'd move on. Happens to everyone, right? Wrong. About 2 weeks later, in early May, Tommy tried again. This time he caught me coming back from my morning jog. I was gross and sweaty, just wanting to get inside and shower, when he basically cornered me in my driveway. "Lizzie, I've been thinking about what you said," he started, and my heart immediately sank. "About the age thing. But like, I'm in college now, and you're not that much older. I'm really mature for my age, everyone says so. And I think we have a real connection." This time I wasn't as gentle. "Tommy, I already gave you my answer. I'm not interested in dating you, period. The age difference is just one of many reasons why this isn't going to happen. I need you to respect that and stop asking." He got this look on his face, not hurt or embarrassed like the first time, but almost angry. Like I was being unreasonable. "Fine, whatever. Your loss," he muttered and walked away. That should have been my first red flag about his character, but I was just relieved he seemed to back off. Things were quiet for about a week, but then I started noticing Tommy staring at me whenever I was outside. Like, really obviously staring. If I was gardening, he'd find some reason to be in his front yard. If I was getting my mail, suddenly he needed to take out the trash. It was making me genuinely uncomfortable. The final straw was when I caught him taking pictures of me while I was washing my car in my driveway. I only noticed because the sun hit his phone screen just right and I saw the flash. When I looked over, he quickly put his phone away and went inside. That night, I decided I needed to talk to Catherine. We had a good relationship, and I figured mother to mother, even though I'm not a mom, she'd understand my concerns and handle it appropriately. I knocked on their door around 7 p.m. Catherine answered with her usual warm smile, which immediately made me feel guilty for what I was about to bring up. "Hey Lizzie. What's up, hon?" "Hi Catherine. I hate to bother you with this, but I need to talk to you about Tommy. Is now a good time?" Her smile faltered slightly, but she invited me in. Rick was watching TV in the living room and gave me a distracted wave. We sat at their kitchen table, and I explained the situation as diplomatically as I could, the 2 dinner invitations, the staring, and especially the photo-taking incident. Catherine's face went through about 5 different emotions as I talked. Confusion, embarrassment, concern, and finally what looked like mortification. Oh my gosh, Lizzie, I am so sorry, she said, covering her face with her hands. I had no idea. That is completely inappropriate. I'll talk to him right away. But then Rick wandered into the kitchen, having apparently overheard the tail end of our conversation. What's all this about? He asked, grabbing a beer from the fridge. Catherine quickly filled him in, and I watched his reaction carefully. Instead of the concern I expected, he just shrugged. Boys will be boys, he said with this dismissive chuckle. Kid's got good taste, I'll give him that. Can't blame him for trying. I felt my jaw drop. Catherine looked mortified. Rick, that's not what the kid asked her out. She said no, end of story. No harm done. He's 18, not 8. Cut him some slack. He's been taking pictures of me without my consent, I said, trying to keep my voice level. That's not just boys being boys. That's creepy behavior that needs to stop. Rick waved his hand dismissively. You're probably misreading the situation. Tommy's a good kid. Maybe he was just checking his phone at the wrong time or something. I could see Catherine was caught between embarrassment about her son and frustration with her husband. She assured me she'd handle it, and I left feeling like at least she understood the seriousness of the situation. For about 2 weeks, things seemed better. Tommy avoided me completely, which was exactly what I wanted. I started to think Catherine had gotten through to him and we could all move on with our lives. Then my coworker Emma sent me a text that made my blood run cold. Girl, is this you? She'd attached a screenshot of a TikTok video. The username was @Tommy_tells_truth, and the video showed Tommy sitting in what looked like his bedroom, with text overlay that read, "When your neighbor lady won't leave you alone, #crazy, #stalker, #send help." The caption was even worse. This woman next door is obsessed with me. Always finds excuses to talk to me, asks personal questions, stares at me through her window. I'm 18 and she's almost 30. It's getting weird and uncomfortable. Thinking about getting my parents involved. I watched the video 3 times, my hands literally shaking. He was completely flipping the narrative. Everything he was claiming I did to him was actually what he had been doing to me. But it got worse. Over the next few days, he posted video after video, each one escalating the story. He claimed I flirted with him constantly, that I'd asked him over for private swimming sessions, I don't even have a pool, that I'd offered to help him with college applications as an excuse to spend time alone with him. The worst one was when he filmed himself catching me looking out my front window. Of course, I was just checking my mail, but he narrated it like, there she goes again, watching me from her window. This is literally every day, guys. I can't even exist in my own front yard without feeling violated. I found out later from Emma that Tommy already had about 12K followers from posting comedy skits and day-in-my-life content, which explained how his videos gained traction so quickly. Each video was getting thousands of views and hundreds of comments. Most people seemed to believe him, calling me a predator and a cougar and suggesting he should call the police or get a restraining order. Some comments were even more vicious, with people saying things like that's what male victims deal with, no one believes them, and if the genders were reversed, she'd already be in jail. The TikTok campaign was bad enough, but then it started affecting my real life. In one of his videos, Tommy had filmed the outside of my house while talking about his stalker neighbor, and eagle-eyed viewers managed to identify my address from neighborhood landmarks and street signs visible in the background. From there, they found my business website and social media profiles through public records. I started getting nasty messages on my professional social media accounts. Someone left a 1-star review on my business page calling me a predator who targets teenage boys. Another person found my LinkedIn and sent a message to several of my professional contacts warning them about my inappropriate behavior. My anxiety was through the roof. I barely left my house except for necessities, and even then I felt like everyone in the neighborhood was staring at me. Mrs. Chen from 3 houses down gave me a weird look while walking her dog, and I couldn't tell if she'd seen the videos or if I was just being paranoid. The worst part was not knowing who had seen the videos and what they believed. I tried reaching out to TikTok to report the videos for harassment multiple times. I submitted detailed reports explaining the false claims and how they were affecting my business and safety. After 2 weeks of back and forth with their support team, they finally responded that while the content was concerning, it didn't violate their community guidelines since Tommy wasn't posting my personal information directly or making explicit threats. The fact that his followers had figured out my identity from contextual clues apparently didn't count. I considered talking to Catherine again, but I was honestly afraid. What if she'd seen the videos and believed her son over me? What if Rick had convinced her I was the problem? 3 weeks into Tommy's social media campaign against me, things escalated dramatically. I was coming home from grocery shopping on a Saturday afternoon when I noticed a small crowd gathered on the sidewalk near our houses. As I got closer, I realized Tommy was filming another TikTok, and he was pointing at my house. So this is where my stalker lives, he was saying to his phone camera. I'm literally afraid to walk to my own mailbox because she might come out and harass me again. I've told my parents, but they don't want to cause drama with the neighbors. Honestly thinking about calling the cops myself. Emma had been keeping me updated on his content, bless her for monitoring this nightmare so I didn't have to, and she'd warned me that his latest videos were getting even more aggressive. But seeing him perform this act in person, with actual neighbors watching, was my breaking point. That's when I snapped. I'd spent weeks having my reputation destroyed, my business attacked, and my mental health deteriorating because this kid couldn't handle being rejected. I marched straight over to him. "Turn off the camera, Tommy. We need to talk." He looked startled for a second, but then his expression shifted to something almost gleeful. "Oh look, here she comes again. Everyone's watching now." I said, "Turn off the camera. What you're doing is harassment and defamation, and it needs to stop. Now." "I'm just telling the truth about what you've been doing to me," he said, still filming. "People have a right to know what kind of person you really are." I looked directly into his camera. "Tommy asked me out twice." I said no both times. He then started following me around, staring at me, and taking pictures of me without my consent. When I told his mother about his inappropriate behavior, he decided to make up lies about me on social media instead of accepting responsibility. "That's the actual truth?" Tommy's face went red. "That's not, you're lying. You're the one who..." But I was already walking away. I could hear him still talking to his camera, probably spinning whatever narrative would make him look like the victim, but I was done engaging. That night, I finally did what I should have done weeks earlier. I called my lawyer. Well, technically my friend Harry, who's a lawyer, but same thing. I'd known Harry since college, and he specializes in cyber harassment and defamation cases. "Lizzie, what this kid is doing is absolutely harassment," Harry told me after I'd filled him in on everything. "The fake accusations, the targeted campaign to damage your reputation and business, this isn't just some teenage prank. This is serious stuff with real legal consequences." "But he's 18, I said. "And technically he never mentions my name directly in the videos." "Doesn't matter. Intent matters. Impact matters. And the fact that his followers found your business information and are harassing you there creates a clear link between his content and the harm to your reputation and livelihood." Harry walked me through my options. I could file for a restraining order, pursue defamation charges, or both. The evidence was all right there on his TikTok account, dozens of videos making false claims about me, with timestamps showing the escalating pattern of harassment. "The thing is," Harry said, "cases like this often resolve quickly once the other party realizes they're facing real legal consequences. A lot of people who act tough on social media fold pretty fast when they're looking at actual lawsuits and court dates." I asked Harry to send a formal cease and desist letter to Tommy and his parents, demanding that he remove all videos mentioning me and stop making any further content about our supposed interactions. Harry also recommended documenting everything: screenshots of all the videos, copies of the harassing messages I'd received, records of the impact on my business. Harry's letter was delivered to the Henderson house on a Tuesday afternoon. I know because I happened to be looking out my window when the courier arrived. Yeah, I was watching from my window, ironic, I know. Within an hour, Catherine was at my door. She looked absolutely devastated. "Lizzie, I am so sorry," she said, tears in her eyes. "I had no idea about the videos. Rick doesn't really do social media, and Tommy told us he was just making comedy content about high school life. We never thought. We didn't know he was talking about you." I invited her in, and she spent the next 20 minutes apologizing while I showed her some of the videos on my laptop. Watching her face as she realized what her son had been doing was almost heartbreaking. This was her baby, her straight-A student who was supposed to be mature and responsible, systematically destroying another person's reputation because his ego couldn't handle rejection. "I'm taking his phone away tonight," she said. "And his computer. And he's going to delete every single one of those videos and post an apology." "Catherine, I appreciate that, but it's gone beyond what you can fix with grounding him. My business has been affected. I've been getting harassment from strangers on the internet. This isn't just teenage drama anymore, it's a legal issue." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "What can we do? How do we make this right?" I explained about the cease and desist letter and the potential for further legal action if Tommy didn't comply immediately. Catherine promised she'd make sure he understood the seriousness of the situation. But here's where it got interesting. Rick's reaction was different. According to Catherine, when she confronted Rick with the videos, his first response wasn't horror or disappointment in their son. It was anger at me for making a big deal out of nothing and trying to ruin a kid's life over some harmless social media posts. He actually said Tommy was just defending himself, Catherine told me, looking embarrassed. "He thinks you're overreacting and that boys Tommy's age are bound to make mistakes." This explained a lot about Tommy's entitled attitude. When your dad consistently makes excuses for your bad behavior and refuses to hold you accountable, of course you're going to think you can do whatever you want without consequences. Catherine assured me that she'd handle Rick and make sure Tommy complied with the cease and desist order. But I had a feeling this wasn't going to be as simple as she hoped. Harry's letter gave Tommy 48 hours to remove all content and cease any further harassment. Instead, Tommy doubled down. 2 days after the letter was delivered, he posted a new video titled "Karen Next Door Tries to Silence Me with Lawyers." In it, he claimed I was so obsessed with him that I'd hired an attorney to harass his family and violate his free speech rights. "This is literally what abusers do," he said in the video. "They attack their victims when their victims try to speak up. She's trying to intimidate me and my family with legal threats because she doesn't want people to know the truth about what she's been doing." The video went viral in the way that TikTok drama often does, over 150K views in 24 hours, thousands of shares, hundreds of comments supporting him and calling me everything from a psycho to a pedo to much worse things I won't repeat. His follower count jumped to over 25K practically overnight. But Tommy made a crucial mistake in this video. For the first time, he showed the actual letter from Harry's law firm. He blurred out most of it, but left enough visible that internet sleuths could figure out the law firm's name and connect it back to me. Within hours, I was getting calls at my business number from strangers. Most were just hang-ups, but some were actual harassment. One guy called me 6 times in an hour, leaving increasingly unhinged voicemails about how women like me needed to stay away from decent young men. That's when Harry told me we were moving beyond cease and desist territory. "This kid just escalated this from a civil matter to potential criminal harassment," Harry explained. The continued posting after receiving legal notice, plus the pattern of encouraging third-party harassment, crosses some clear legal lines. Harry helped me file a formal complaint with the local police department. I was honestly nervous about this step. Tommy was technically still a teenager, and I didn't want to ruin his life over what started as an awkward crush. But as Harry pointed out, Tommy was the one who'd chosen to escalate things at every opportunity instead of just accepting my initial "no thank you." The police took the complaint seriously, especially when I showed them the progression of videos and the evidence of how Tommy's content had led to harassment from his followers. Detective Martinez, who handled my case, explained that cyber harassment laws had gotten much stronger in recent years, particularly around cases involving reputation damage and targeted campaigns. "We see this a lot with social media," she told me. "Someone gets angry about something relatively minor, but instead of dealing with it maturely, they try to weaponize their online following to attack the other person. The problem is, once you put false information out there about someone, you can't control what other people do with it." Detective Martinez explained that they'd need to build a proper case file first, which would take about a week. They'd document all the videos, trace the harassment back to Tommy's content, and then approach the family. She warned me that these cases could take several weeks to resolve, but said the evidence was strong enough that most families chose to settle things outside of court once they understood the potential consequences. About 10 days later, Detective Martinez paid a visit to the Henderson house. I know because I saw her patrol car pull up around 7 p.m. on a Monday evening. Harry had given me a heads up that this would probably happen soon, but I still felt nervous watching it unfold. The detective was inside their house for about 45 minutes. I tried not to watch, but honestly, it was hard not to notice the activity next door. At one point, I could hear raised voices, not clearly enough to make out words, but definitely an argument happening. Around 8:30, Detective Martinez left. I figured that was the end of it for the night, trying to get back to some semblance of normal evening routine. Then, around 10 p.m., there was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Tommy standing on my front porch, looking absolutely miserable. My first instinct was not to answer. After everything that had happened, I had no interest in talking to him. But something about his body language made me pause. He wasn't standing there with his usual confident posture. He looked defeated. I opened the door but kept the security chain latched. "What do you want, Tommy?" "Please," he said, and his voice was shaky. "I need to talk to you. I'm so sorry. I messed up really bad. You've had 2 months to apologize." "Why now?" "Because the detective explained what could happen to me. The charges you could press. She said I could end up with a criminal record, that colleges could revoke acceptance letters, that this could follow me for years." I studied his face through the gap in the door. For the first time since this whole thing started, Tommy looked genuinely scared rather than angry or entitled. "She also said if I make this right now, you might be willing to work something out instead of pressing full charges." Ah. There it was. Tommy wasn't here because he'd suddenly developed a conscience. He was here because he'd finally realized his actions might have consequences for him personally. But I was curious what making this right looked like in his mind, so I closed the door, unlatched the chain, and opened it fully. "You have 5 minutes," I told him. Tommy launched into what was clearly a prepared speech about how sorry he was and how he'd made bad choices because he was embarrassed about being rejected. He promised to delete all the videos immediately and post a public apology explaining that everything he'd said about me was false. "I'll tell everyone that I made it all up because I was angry," He said. I'll take full responsibility. Just please don't press charges. I can't have a criminal record, it'll ruin my whole future. I let him finish his spiel, then asked the question that had been bothering me most. Tommy, do you actually understand why what you did was wrong? Not just that it's going to get you in trouble, but why it was wrong to do to another person. He looked confused by the question, which was honestly answer enough. But he tried, because it hurt your feelings? Tommy, you spent 2 months systematically lying about me to thousands of strangers on the internet. You made up stories about me being a predator. Your followers found my business information and have been harassing me. I've lost clients. I've been afraid to leave my house. You didn't just hurt my feelings, you tried to destroy my reputation and my livelihood because your ego couldn't handle being told no. His face was flushing red again, and I could see him struggling not to get defensive. I didn't mean for it to get that bad, he said finally. I was angry and embarrassed, and I wanted people to be on my side. So you decided to make me the villain in your story? Yes. And that was wrong. I know it was wrong now. I told Tommy I'd consider not pressing criminal charges under very specific conditions. 1. He had to delete every single video mentioning me or referencing our situation within 24 hours. 2. He had to post a clear, unambiguous public apology taking full responsibility and admitting he'd made false accusations. 3. He had to stay off social media entirely for 6 months, no TikTok, no Instagram, no Twitter, nothing. 4. He had to write me a formal written apology letter acknowledging specifically what he'd done wrong and how it had affected me. 5. His parents had to pay for my legal fees and compensate me for the documented business losses from the harassment. 6. If he violated any of these conditions or resumed any form of harassment, I'd immediately press full charges with no further opportunities for resolution. And Tommy, I added, this isn't a negotiation. These are the conditions. Take them or leave them, but decide now. He looked panicked, probably realizing for the first time that this wasn't just going to blow over. 6 months with no social media? But I have sponsors interested, and my follower count is built on lies about me. I cut him off. You can rebuild your following honestly when your ban is over, or you can explain to your future cellmate why you're there for cyber harassment. Your choice. That seemed to hit home. He agreed immediately, promising to start deleting videos as soon as he got home. It's been 48 hours since Tommy's late-night visit. True to his word, all the videos are gone from his TikTok account. Yesterday afternoon, he posted a video apology that was actually better than I expected. I need to apologize for videos I posted over the past 2 months about my neighbor. Everything I said was false. She never stalked me, never flirted with me, never did anything inappropriate. I made up those stories because I was embarrassed that she wasn't interested in dating me. What I did was harassment, and it was wrong. I'm sorry to her, and I'm sorry to everyone who believed my lies. This is entirely my fault. The response to his apology has been interesting. Some of his followers are angry at him for lying to them. Others are angry at me for forcing him to apologize. But a surprising number of comments are supportive of his decision to take responsibility, with people sharing their own stories about false accusations and online harassment. Catherine came over this morning with Tommy's written apology letter and a check covering Harry's legal fees plus compensation for the 3 clients I'd lost during the harassment campaign. She also brought homemade cookies and spent an hour apologizing again for not taking the situation seriously sooner. Rick's been difficult about this whole thing, she admitted, looking embarrassed. He's angry about having to pay the fees and thinks Tommy's punishment is too harsh. We had a huge fight about it last night. He kept saying boys make mistakes and that you're being vindictive. But I told him this is what happens when you don't teach your kids to respect other people's boundaries and refuse to hold them accountable. She paused, then added quietly, I think I'm going to insist on family counseling. Rick's attitude about this whole situation has really opened my eyes to some problems in how we've been raising the kids. Apparently Tommy's college acceptance is safe. Since no criminal charges were filed, there's nothing for them to find out about. But Catherine and Rick have agreed that Tommy won't be living in the dorms this fall. He'll be commuting from home and working part-time to pay back the money they spent resolving this situation. TBH, I'm still processing everything that happened. Part of me feels guilty for threatening an 18-year-old with criminal charges over what started as awkward teenage behavior. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that Tommy's age doesn't excuse the deliberate, calculated nature of what he did. This wasn't just a kid making a mistake. He had multiple opportunities to back down, to accept my no, to listen to his mother's concerns, to respond appropriately to legal warnings. Instead, he chose to escalate at every step, getting more creative and vicious in his lies because he couldn't handle the bruise to his ego. The scariest part is how easy it was for him to weaponize social media against me. If I hadn't had Harry's help and the resources to fight back legally, Tommy's false narrative could have completely destroyed my reputation and my business. How many people have been victims of similar campaigns without any recourse? I also can't stop thinking about Rick's boys will be boys attitude and how it enabled Tommy's behavior. When you consistently excuse your kids' bad choices and refuse to hold them accountable, you're not protecting them, you're setting them up to become adults who think they can treat other people badly without consequences. Tommy still has 4.5 months left on his social media ban, and honestly, I think it's the best thing that could have happened to him. He's been forced to find other ways to spend his time, and according to Catherine, he's actually been reading books and learning guitar, activities that don't involve performing his life for internet strangers. As for me, my business has recovered, and I'm slowly getting back to feeling comfortable in my own neighborhood. I've also started volunteering with a local organization that helps people deal with online harassment, because I learned firsthand how isolating and terrifying it can be when someone tries to weaponize the internet against you. The whole experience taught me that sometimes being nice and trying to handle things quietly actually enables bad behavior. If I'd been more direct with Tommy from the beginning, or if I'd involved authorities sooner, maybe things wouldn't have escalated as far as they did. But I also learned that standing up for yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, is always worth it. Nobody has the right to harass you or lie about you, regardless of their age or their reasons. And sometimes the only way to stop a bully is to show them that their actions have real consequences. I ran into Tommy at the grocery store last week. He saw me first and looked like he wanted to disappear into the cereal aisle, but I actually approached him. "How's the guitar going?" I asked. He looked surprised that I'd heard about it, then gave me a small smile. "Good, actually. Harder than I thought it would be, but good." "That's great. Learning new skills is always worth the effort." We had about 30 seconds of normal, polite conversation, the kind of conversation we probably could have been having all along if Tommy had just accepted my initial no thank you with grace. As I was walking away, he said, "Lizzie, I really am sorry. Not just because I got in trouble, but because what I did was crappy. You didn't deserve that." And for the first time, I actually believed him. Maybe that's the real resolution here. Not the deleted videos or the legal consequences or even the forced apology, but a young man finally understanding that other people's feelings and well-being matter as much as his own ego. It only took 2 months of harassment, thousands of dollars in legal fees, and the threat of criminal charges, but hey, character growth is character growth, right? BTW, Tommy starts college in the fall, and I genuinely hope he does well. But I also hope he remembers this experience the next time someone tells him no about something. Because the next person might not be as patient as I was, and he might not get another chance to make things right.